just once more to highlight, I don't consider myself an expert on the topic, but I'm happy to transmit the message we received from the policy office of the environmental DG Environment of the European Commission. And also, I'm pretty sure that you all are quite familiar with the law itself. I just want to give a little bit of an update and maybe refresh some memories in case you don't deal with this law on a daily basis. And in the beginning, just to put it in a little bit larger context, what we are going to talk about, the State of Nature report published by the European Environmental Agency in the year 2020 highlighted the alarming state of nature in Europe, with biodiversity declining at a significant rate, and it made clear that the survival of species and of their habitats is threatened. And the main message of this report was that there is definitely certain change required, or actually a radical change, if we want to stop or reverse these trends. And repairing nature became one of the most contentious projects of the EU Green Deal, resulting also in the development of the EU biodiversity strategy for the year 2030. This biodiversity strategy aims to ensure that Europe's biodiversity will be put back on the track of recovery by the year 2030, and that these processes benefit people, economy, but also climate and planet in general. The strategy bases on 4 pillars: protect nature, restore nature, enable transformative change, and also ensure that EU puts effort for ambitious global agenda. So I'm pretty sure you are well familiar with the pillar protect nature. The biodiversity strategy calls for protecting 30% of the EU land and sea, and this process will be to a large extent based on the Natura 2000 sites, but also on the nationally designated protected areas, taking into account local specific conditions. It will also encourage improvement of ecological connectivity between the sites and better management of the sites. But besides that, another goal is to to put under strict protection 10% of the EU land and sea, covering the areas of high biodiversity value and areas important in terms of climate change, so for mitigation and adaptation purposes, which would include then protection of primary and old growth forests, for example. But just protecting nature, especially in its current stand, is obviously not enough. So another pillar the biodiversity strategy bases on is restoration. The strategy sets as an objective developing the path towards biodiverse and resilient nature across the EU through restoration of degraded ecosystems, and through that contributing to other goals, for example, climate change mitigation, adaptation, ensuring food security, contributing to reversing the degradation of land, and also contributing to meeting the EU's commitments on the global level. So this is a very ambitious law, which unfortunately had to go quite a bumpy road. So it was first proposed last year in June 2022 by the European Commission. But as you all know and have heard already today, it resonated quite a lot, but this resonance was not always positive. So, for example, in the recent months, certain parliamentary committees of the European Union rejected this law: the Committee on Fisheries, the Committee on Agriculture, the Committee on Environment did not really show them a major support. But luckily, regardless of these complications, in July, the law passed the European Parliament and now entered into the trilogue phase, which means that there is an ongoing negotiation for finalization of the law between the Council, the Parliament, and the Commission. And according to our knowledge, these negotiations are now really speeding up and should be finalized in the early November. So the main goal under this law is to, or the main commitment put under this law is to restore 20% of EU's land and sea by the year 2030, and to restore all the ecosystems in poor or bad condition, which really require restoration by the year 2050. The law bases on specific restoration targets, and in the next presentation we will hear in more detail about this. I will just mention that besides restoration of protected habitat types, which is actually a direct connection to the Habitat Directive of the EU, the law also refers to the restoration of different types of ecosystems, like urban ecosystems, reviving river ecosystems, reversing the loss of pollinators, restoring forest ecosystems, and a few more targets. But of course, I have to always remind you that this is still not the final version. That's why we have to also be cautious in certain assumptions that we make about the law. And just one example of the article or articles which talk about the restoration of the land, freshwater, and coastal ecosystems, so the surface targets. The law proposes, or can be read from the point of view of the effort-based approach. So it calls for improving the condition of these ecosystems, and it sets concrete targets for the years 2030, 2040, and 2050. And besides that, it calls to re-establish the ecosystems. And also to improve the quality and quantity of the habitats of protected species and to reconnect these habitats. But this can also be seen from the outcome-based approach. So effort-based and outcome-based can be both read from the current version of the law. What I want to highlight with this slide is to draw your attention that this is quite a complex law, and it requires member states to have a strategic vision. Member states have to develop their own national restoration plans. So this is actually how they are supposed to implement their targets or move towards reaching their targets. So national restoration plans can be seen as a governance framework. National restoration plans have to provide concrete measures, concrete timeline for these measures, and also the total area which has to be restored. And I think it's important to note and to make use of the connections between the national restoration plans and different other green policies, which can deliver synergies in the work on different goals. So, for example, just to name a few, what could be the connection? It could be the connection to the river basin management plans, or it could be connection to the national adaptation plans, but not only. Besides that, the restoration plan, national restoration plans, provide an opportunity to integrate different actors. So they are supposed to be delivered in an integrated and participatory way. As I mentioned, they offer links to different other processes, producing synergies for climate action, for example, or for socio-economical situation. And what's important to remember that we don't have to start things from the scratch. We can already build on what's happening now. or what exists on the resources which are available. So for example, the experiences taken from the Natura 2000 networks should definitely lay basis for the restoration work, but maybe this should not be the exclusive way for doing restoration. And furthermore, the member states can build on the ongoing restoration activities. This is just a very brief overview or highlights of what can happen or is supposed to happen at national level soon. Just a short reminder, after the adoption of the law, the national plans should be developed already within the next 1.5 to 2 years. But one question which arises from this would be, how can the national state actors actually ensure coordinated action on ecosystem restoration between each other, so across the borders? And that's something which we might be able to discuss today or start discussing today. Thank you very much for your attention.